Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I am Gary, your host. This is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and then examine the stories and the art. This time I want to take a look at some more of the small press comics and mini comics. Now, these are some small press comics, and I also consider this size mini comics because they are considerably smaller than the standard sized comic book. But usually, most people think of, well, when you think of mini comics, you think of something more about this size, which is true. Those are mini comics. These are also mini comics. Some people call them ash cans. I hate that term because that would indicate that they're trash, and they're not trash. They are treasure. And I've produced some of my own this size. And this is also kind of your standard size for zines, which this could also qualify as a zine. They are, of course, your standard 8.5 by 11 sized sheet of paper, folded double, which gives you this size, which is 8.5 by 11, which would be 4 3/4 by 5.5 inches. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about this creator here for Basic Staples and these others here. This is done by Jake Roth. He's a cartoonist, local cartoonist in this area, in the Denver area. Someone who I know slightly from the Denver Drink and Draw group, and I happen to have also have him as a friend on Facebook. I messaged him with a few questions, but he's never responded, so I'll have to go with what little bit I know here about him. As I said, he's a local independent cartoonist. His comics are centered on the small town of Bakerstown, which is a kind of a fictitious version of, if I remember correctly, he said he grew up where South Park area, where, you know, the animated show South Park, yeah, that area. If that's just if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong, and Jake watches this sometime, he'll probably let me know what I got wrong. And his Bakerstown, they're featuring the lives of the people living therein, and he cites Dick Tracy for his inspiration to name some of his characters, i.e. A journalist named Reed Porter, and the retired wrestler named Luchador, etc. And he has a very charming and simplistic, almost childlike art style. It's kind of reminiscent of coloring books. and some of the old time children's books. From what I understand, he is now publishing the book, which I have never seen other than some references to online, is Art and Home Life. And he now uses, I guess, what he does is uses a Polaroid camera. And he goes walking around the neighborhood where he lives, taking shots of things that look interesting to him, like fire hydrants and signs, etc. And I gather that then that gives him stuff to incorporate into his artwork. And he's done a coloring book, at least one coloring book, about old-time radio, which he likes to listen to a lot. And I happen to also be a big fan of old-time radio. And for those who don't know what I mean when I say old-time radio, I'm talking about from the 30s, 40s, and early 50s, when radio was like television and had all kinds of programming on it. There were sitcoms, there were dramas, and all the same kind of stuff we have on TV now. They even had some radio adaptations of movies that were in the theaters at the time. Had stuff like The Shadow, Gunsmoke, even The Maltese Falcon, for example. As I said, things of movies that were in the theater and then had radio versions of them. Just as an aside there, I have on tape 2 different versions of The Maltese Falcon from 2 different programs, starring Humphrey Bogart, who starred in The Maltese Falcon. That's just as an example. And it turns out that one time at one of these Denver Drink and Draw gatherings, I saw he happened to be listening to some old-time radio, and he had it on his phone, and I talked with him about it. And he's the one who steered me towards a free app for free old-time radio, which I have on my phone. And I still listen to once in a while because I love the old time radio. I think that's great. Now here, we're going to start with this looking here. Basic Staples. This is from 2009, and it's reminiscent because his stuff is kind of slice of life, some autobiographical, semi-autobiographical, very slice of life type stuff. This is from his reminiscing from junior high. Well, it's middle school, I guess, but it says junior high from 1991. Oh, he's so young because I went to junior high, and then they actually called it junior high back in the mid 70s, early 70s. Yeah, and you can see here some of his. And see, summer break is over, and you can see what I mean by his very charming and simplistic art style, and it has a lovely lettering style. And I can also see, since this is 09, I can then compare it to this one here from 2010, just a year later, and especially like in another one from 2013, how his style kind of matured a little bit. And it's very kid-friendly. I would consider it all ages. And I enjoy doing it. Here is because all his main characters are kids, because they're kids. But then you see here, I woke up special for this, and this is from Bakerstown, and it's just kind of like a walk through the town and what people are doing on a Sunday morning, and little stories and vignettes and the like. And it's very, very charming. I like his style, and I was really taken. And as you can see from the stuff showing my artwork, my style is considerably different, and you'd think what I usually like is different, but I really like his style. It says it's charming, sometimes very detailed. So, I like this stuff, and I remember. Here's a kid playing with toys. Remember when we were talking with him and said, I tell him how I was taken by his art style. And here's another one with some reminiscent going with his brother to a comic shop when he was a kid. When talking with him, said his style reminds me of something, but I couldn't place it. And I asked him a few questions and said, no, that would not have been him. And I said, oh, well, doggone, I wonder why. Where I'd say, look at the kind of detail in the background he puts. But very graphic. But see, one thing that I like is, his style is very, very consistent. His figures are consistent in proportion. And even though it is simplistic, it's very competent. Very competent. I don't know what his artistic education may have been, but that was one of the questions that I had asked him about, or his influences, because I have to wonder where his influences might have been to have come up with it. Here is one, it's a full-sized comic, and and here's got Indicia says Luchador. It's about the wrestler. Bakerstown Comics Luchador and all related characters. 2016 by Jake Roth. This is, as I said, this is 2016. It's a lot more recent. About some of the stuff about the wrestling. I just so happens I happen to have a friend who is a wrestler, professional wrestler. He works in construction and stuff, but he does some local fill-in and exhibition type wrestling stuff. So he is a professional wrestler. I've never seen him wrestle, but I've seen a lot of pictures. Sometimes it's downright bloody. Like at a party at his house not too long ago, and he arrived late because he was at a match, and I asked him, said, "Well, was it bloody?" And he says, "Not mine." So that is very quaint and very likable. And see, also on the back, that's upside down. The back cover, these others, also inclusive. This one was published through Squidworks, which you can find online. And this one was published by Kilgore Books and Comics. Now, Kilgore is a bookstore here in town, a secondhand bookstore, and they also sell alternative, small press comics and the like, as well as some. Have a box of older secondhand comics, mainstream comics, and that is where Noah Van Sciver, if you have familiar with him, where he was working there, and they published his early stuff. So that's where who's now does big graphic novels and an award winner, all kinds of awards. That's where Noah Van Sciver got his start. Now here is another one, and this is why I thought Jake's art looked so familiar. Old Car Comics and Big George Comics. This is by a fellow. These are from 87, 91, and 92, I think. What's his name? George Stasinos, and he was, at least at the time, in Utah. I don't remember exactly where I came across these. I recently rediscovered them in my collection. Had them in an envelope, and of course, Big George here, he collects old cars, so you can see his very beautiful renditions of his cars. But you can also see that his art style is very similar to Jake Roth's, and that's why I thought I had seen Jake's stuff when the first time I met him and saw his stuff, because their style is very similar. Very clean, neat, still nice proportions, good characterization and continuity and proportions on the characters. I like this. And his stuff is also primarily autobiographical or semi-autobiographical. That one was about some of the old cars. There's Big George, hey, 24 pages of great cartooning entertainment. And just a day in the life of Big George. And there's some really nice and quaint, and his stuff is mostly also kid friendly. I think there might be a little bit of cussing in here, but not much. No overt sexuality, some slight innuendo. Here's one he signed. I had ordered these, and I don't know where I found it. I think I got his address out of Comic Creators Monthly or whatever it was. I think that's what it was. Some kind of ad. And I ordered his stuff. This is a story about him being in fights. And it's just really, really nice. And I like both of them. And that's why I'm featuring them today together, is because of the similarity of their art styles and content. So I want to thank you for joining me this time at my look at small press comics and mini comics. Please like and share with your friends, others who might be interested in this kind of comics. Some people don't realize that there's nothing but the mainstream comics and superheroes and stuff out there. This is kind of an outgrowth out of, in a way, out of the underground comic movement from the 60s, even though the content is completely different. And then also the independent comics of the 80s and 90s. So please share with your friends who might be interested in this kind of stuff, and leave a comment. Please leave a comment. Do you like these Bakerstown and Big George comics? Do you like that simpler comic style? This would be something good for kids to read too, because it is entirely kid friendly. And if you would mind your kids reading these kind of books, or do you have any of them in your collection? Do you know these artists or other similar artists? Please leave a comment and let me know. And that's all I've got this time. And remember, comics are art.